Hey there, this is Jay Little, and I am here in beautiful St. Louis, Missouri, about to experience one of my favorite things of all time, which is Geekway to the West. Geekway to the West is a convention held here in St. Louis. This year is going to be its 16th year. I can hardly believe it. And it's really interesting when you look back at the history that it all started on a dare. It was a dare. Now, back at the time on Board Game Geek, I was really heavily involved. In fact, at one time, I had the most geek lists on the website, which was really cool. I've been far outpaced by now. But what was really nice is the community was small enough that everybody knew everybody. And some of the personalities really started to form out there, like Tom Vassell and others who took the time to really build that community, respond to people, provide some great information, reviews, recommendations, and things like that. Well, I had been on one of the forums talking about the lack of gaming opportunities in the St. Louis area. Now, this was before meetup.com and other social networking opportunities that allow people to set and make dates, if you will, create these small little events to be able to get together and go gaming, whether it's a nearby cafe or something like that. And I had been complaining about it, and somebody else on the site, Chad Chisholm, Chatty Boy, basically said, then do something about it. It stopped me in my tracks, and I started to think, do something about it. What can I do about it? What am I going to do? Make my own convention? Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And just a few weeks later, I think I cobbled this all together in 3 weeks and promoted it just through Board Game Geek and some of the people that I knew in that area. The very first Geekway to the West was held in my house in our basement. My wife was not thrilled about the idea because we had a son that was just born earlier that year. He was only months old, but she graciously took him to go visit Grandma and Grandpa for the weekend while I let a whole bunch of strangers into my house to play some games. Now, I knew a number of these people from the St. Louis gaming scene, but still, there were a lot of people that I only knew through their Board Game Geek avatars and handles. So, sure, hey, people, just come on over, crash on the couch, crash on the floor, whatever you want, and we'll do some gaming this weekend. But that's really how it started. And that very first year, I don't think we had 20 people, but for pulling it together that quickly, I was really excited. We had so much fun that first year that I decided why not do this again. The following year, I promoted a little bit more heavily, and we ended up renting out a place in St. Louis called Wapplehurst Park, which was this big concrete building in the middle of one of the parks there. And it was a little bit uncomfortable cramming as many people as we did because we more than doubled. It was somewhere in the mid 40s, maybe 50 people that second year. It was crazy. But that's also the year that I started what I think is one of Geekway's best known traditions, and that is the Play and Win Library. Now, what is that, you ask? I'm glad you did. It's owed in large part to Jay Tummelson from Rio Grande Games. He was so instrumental in the early years of the hobby in bringing these games over from Europe, the games that people were already playing in German and Italian and French, and bringing them translated in the States so that we could play a lot of these fantastic games as well. I had approached him by email asking if he would be willing to donate some games for the cause. And in his reply, he's like, I'm sorry, I can't give out games like that. I just can't give games out to everybody who asks. I get so many requests. And I could completely understand where he was coming from. I mean, that's just giving out money. So I thought about it for a while and I got back to him and asked him, what would it take for you to be willing to provide prizes? And I made this proposition. What if I could guarantee you that by the end of the event, one, those games were going to get played, but more importantly, two, the games were going to go home with one of the people who played it that weekend. And that's how Play and Win started. He really liked the idea, and within a few weeks, I had 2 or 3 boxes of the latest Rio Grande game titles there at my disposal. And it's just amazing. It's something that has continued on to the day. Basically, what you do is it's its own separate library. You go and check it out there. play it with a group of friends, fill out a small little form that has your names in it, and then at the end of the weekend, there's a drawing, and one of the players from that particular session goes home with a free game. It's been so popular, and I'm really, really excited about it. But again, Jay Tumbleson gets a lot of credit because he pushed me to try to come up with something innovative and exciting that publishers would be willing to do. And over the course of the years, we had thousands of dollars worth of games being donated. And then after the convention, I'd compile all that data and I'd send them some information to let them know how many total times the games that they sent were being played, how many people played them, and things like that. So they were getting a lot of value back. And it was just fantastic. They were willing to contribute that much right away to a relatively unknown event like that. But that was awesome. Imagine that at this point we were still unknown, hadn't been called Geekway to the West yet. In fact, I wasn't even the person who came up with that name. One of my friends on Board Game Geek, Chester, had mentioned in passing, well, you know, St. Louis is known as the gateway to the West, and we're all known as geeks, and then boom, Geekway to the West. And that name was fantastic. As soon as I heard that name, I immediately knew what the logo had to be. And it's really exciting that it stayed that way ever since. And over the years, more and more people have started to recognize both the name and the logo. Now, if I post something like that, I've got it on my business card, I've got it on my website. Somebody sees that logo and they'll mention, oh, Geekway to the West, have you been to that? I love that convention. And I always smile inside and I want to share the story of it because it's really just fascinating to me how on a lark, on a dare, we were able to put together a small event that grew and grew and grew. And based on the fantastic support of all the people who attended and then came back year after year after year, it spread like wildfire. And now thousands of people come to St. Louis every year for Geekway to the West. And I'm just really excited and humbled that I got to be a part of that. Of course, that's not the entire story. I mean, Geekway has been going on for so long that it's hard to get everything into just one video. Maybe I'll do some more. Maybe you'll just have to track me down at a convention like Geekway and ask yourself. I mean, there's so much going on. There's the time that I cried myself silly when I had to leave, but it was to be able to go to Fantasy Flight Games and design stuff like X-Wing. There's all the support from the people that took over, like Jane Moore and Chris Darden, and dozens of other people, hundreds of volunteers who keep this going. And every year has had an interesting story or quirk to it. And if you haven't been able to attend Geekway, what are you waiting for? It's a fantastic event, and I really encourage you to check it out.